So we're working through completing this add host form, and the next step right now is to be able to submit the image and upload it to Cloudinary. But to do that, we need to basically accomplish two things. The first thing is that Cloudinary is, by default, it's not open, so nobody can just upload images to your Cloudinary account. You need to have a signature to be able to do that. So we need to create code that generates a signature, and we only want to allow authenticated users to generate that signature. We're going to do that by creating a mutation on our backend that will basically return us a signature for authenticated users. And then with the signature, we can upload the actual image to Cloudinary, and as a response, they'll give us a URL to that image that we uploaded. So that's what we're working on now. We're on this page here, the houses add, and we'll go into the code. So we're actually going to start on the back end. We're going to start by declaring the mutation to generate a signature. So that will be done within Schema and within image. And we're going to uncomment all of the imports at the top of the file, get rid of this export. And the first thing we want to declare is what's called an object type. And this is basically what's going to be returned as the result of a mutation. So difference from mutation and query. Query, you're just asking for data. It's like a GET request in RESTful routes or in HTTP verbs. Mutation is more like a post or a put or even a delete. It's sort of all those other ones, or patch. And in this case, we're creating a signature. So that's why it's going to be a mutation and not a query. So what are we returning from this? So we'll declare an object type. I don't know why it's adding this extra object type. We'll clean it up later in a second. So it's going to wrap itself around an image signature. And image signature is going to have two fields in it. So the way you declare a field is field, and then we return sort of what type the field returns. So this one's going to be a string, and it's going to be a signature field. So we'll declare it as a string here. So we've got some squiggles. We will fix that in a second. Next, we're going to declare our second field. So this will also have a field declared through this decorator, and the type returned is an int that we've imported here from type GraphQL. String you don't need to because it's available in JavaScript by default. So this is going to be a timestamp field, and the TypeScript type is number. Okay, so we've got these squiggles here, and it says signature has no initializer and is not definitely assigned in the constructor. So we're going to fix that by adding a bang between the declaration of the property and the colon. That just says, like, don't worry, I'm going to declare this. I'm going to take care of it. All good. So let's get rid of this extra import because I don't know why I added that. And now it's time to declare a resolver. And the resolver is where you declare all of the queries and the mutations, in this case for anything to do with image. So why don't we start with the export class image resolver. So that's the class. We need to wrap it in the resolver decorator. So now we can go and we can declare the mutation within here. So the mutation is going to be called create image signature. And it is going to return an image resolver, so this class that we declared up here. And we'll fill in the body in a second, but we have to add the different decorators. So the first one is that it's a mutation. And what is this mutation going to return? It's also returning an image signature. It's sort of weird. You always have to basically give the GraphQL types and then give the things for TypeScript. So you sort of have to type it twice, which is a little weird, but that's the way it works. And we can add an extra decorator around here called authorized. And that will basically ensure that, remember that auth function we created that will basically return true only if there's a user ID that it gets it from the context? This will only sort of call our mutation if authorized returns true. So this will only work for authorized or authenticated users in this case. So inside of create image signature, our goal is to return an object that has signature and timestamp. And the first thing we need to declare is the timestamp. So this is going to be a new date.getTime. And we're going to divide it by 1,000 because it gives it to it in milliseconds by default. We just want it in seconds. So we're going to do that. But because you're dividing by 1,000, that would give you like a float with decimal places. We don't want that, so we're just going to wrap a math.round around this so that we have an actual integer in this timestamp field, because that's what the return type wants. So with the timestamp, we can now use some Cloudinary functionality to generate a signature. So we do that by saying const signature is equal to, so we have imported Cloudinary up here, and we're going to say cloudinary.utils.api sign request. And sign request wants to receive the timestamp and in an object, and then after the object it wants the secret. Now this is a server-side secret, so you'll never have it available on your client in the browser. That's why not just anyone can generate these signatures. It has to happen on the server because it should be secret and protected. So we're going to say process.env.cloudinary secret, like that. Okay, with that saved, we actually now have everything we need to just return the timestamp and the signature from here. So it's not liking this. Why not? I feel like it should be timestamp is a number. What does math.round give us? A number. Okay, I feel like this is just some weird thing with VS Code. Remember, we can come into the console and we can run yarn tsc and we can do a check with like actual TypeScript and see if there's any issues. And it will tell us if there are, and there are. Timestamp does not, so I'm timestamp. What am I doing wrong? Timestamp is a number. Object literal may only specify known properties and timestamp does not exist. I bet you this is the dumbest thing. timestamp. Timestamp. Okay, what the heck is going on? Return. We want an image resolver. Image resolver has timestamp. And timestamp does not exist in oh, I am okay. Everyone watching the video is probably just going to leave this in. It's all good. So the return type here is not image resolver, which is the class that it's in. That makes no sense. It is image signature. Oh boy. Okay. And one other thing I noticed, just it thinks signature right here is an any. So we could just say that it's going to be a string, just so that it's happy and it lines up with the image signature stuff. Okay. I'm sorry you have to suffer through me doing this. Okay. Next up. So we've got the backend built. We're going to go to the browser and we're going to open up localhost 3000 API GraphQL. Why are we doing this? I just want to make sure that the schema includes our mutation, which it doesn't. So one thing we needed to do is to go back into schema index, and we need to import the image resolver and then add the image resolver to the list of resolvers for our GraphQL schema. If we do that, we can refresh this, and now we have the mutation showing up, which is great, exactly what we wanted. And the other cool thing is that by reloading this page here, it's also updated our generated schema.gql file, which is great because we're going to generate some types based on this data when we write our mutation in the browser. So we're going to pop over to the browser now, and we're going to go into Components, House Form. Okay, and we're talking about what happens when you submit the form. So on submit, it calls handle create with all of the data. So at this point right here is where we're going to basically call the mutation and get that signature and timestamp back. But in order to call a mutation, we first have to declare it. So we're actually going to come up here and we'll just make sure we import the things we need. So for now, we need this use mutation and GQL, and we'll declare our signature mutation. So this is the definition of the mutation we want to send to the backend. So this is mutation, and we're going to give it a name, create signature mutation. Then we're going to actually call the mutation. So create image signature. And we don't have to pass any arguments to this. It doesn't take any. But what it gives us back is the signature and the timestamp, like this. So with this in place, we've declared this. What we can actually do is hop back to the console, just clear this out, and we can run a command called yarn codegen. So yarn codegen is running a script that was declared in package.json, and it's sort of long. It's calling Apollo client codegen. It's saying I want to generate TypeScript as opposed to like Flow or something else. Where is the schema.gql, that one we just looked at, and basically where to, what pages to include, what to exclude, and where to put the generated files. So it created a new folder for us inside of component, or inside of source, called generated. And right now it's generated types for our call to the mutation. This is really cool because now the data we get back from the mutation and the variables that we send to the mutation, they're all typed. So this is exactly what we wanted. So if we go back to the house form now, we can import the create signature mutation type that I already sort of set up here. So now we're going to come down into our component, and we have to basically declare the use mutation hook so that we're able to call this mutation that we declared up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to call const is going to return us something, and we're going to call use mutation, and we're going to pass in the mutation. So this was signature mutation, like this. And between here, sort of after use mutation, we can put in what is the return type, what's the TypeScript interface that we're going to get back from this mutation when called. So that was the one we just imported. And it's going to give us here basically a function to call when we want to call this mutation. So create signature, like that. So with this function set up, create signature, we can hop into handle create and basically call it. So you can, if you want at this point, you can comment this out or just get rid of this. We're going to start replacing the real code. What should we do when we're actually creating a form? And the first thing we wanted to do was call that signature we just created. So whenever you call a signature, it gives you data back. We can't call it data because we already have a variable called data. So we're going to just tweak it and call it signature data. And that's going to be an asynchronous call to create signature, the mutation we just set up here. And then what we're going to do is basically check to see if we got something back from the server. So we'll just say if signature data. And if this was done, we can basically take that data out and put it into individual variables like const signature and timestamp are equal to something. But why don't we just console.log this out so we can see what we're getting back for now before we go on and we just continue with the rest of this process. So we're going to come here, just refresh so we have the latest, open up the console like that. We need to enter an address, doesn't really matter where, so that we can add an image. And we'll go into desktop, houses, the donkey, 2 beds, and we'll click save. So what we got back here, first of all, in network, we have our actual GraphQL call. So We sent this mutation to the server. Server gave us back the data. So it has data, create image signature, and then the signature and the timestamp, which is exactly what we wanted. And we console log this out here as well. So we have the signature and the timestamp. So that's what we want to basically access at this point. So we're going to say const signature and timestamp are equal to, so it was signature data dot create image signature. So that's what will give us the signature and the timestamp. And it's sweet because it's all typed because we declared the return type right here. So at this point, with the signature and data, we can post the actual image to Cloudinary, upload it there, and Cloudinary will give us a URL back of like how to access that image. And to do that, we need to send it 3 pieces of information. So we're going to call a function called upload image. And we're going to give it 3 things. We're going to give it the image itself, so data image, which is a file list, the first image in that file list. We're going to give it the signature and the timestamp. So this is obviously going to return something. We'll get to that in a second. Why don't we just go declare this function first so we know what it's going to return. So we're going to go up here. We could put this above the interface. It doesn't really matter where. So we're going to say it's an async function because we're going to post the data using fetch, so promises upload image. So it received an image of type file, a signature of type string, and a timestamp of type number. And it's going to eventually return the data from that, but we'll get to that in a second. So first, where are we going to post the data to? We need a URL. So if you go to your browser and you go over to the Cloudinary dashboard, so just log in, go to your dashboard. Once this loads, log in. Okay, so right up sort of in this area, if you you're going to get this API base URL. So you can copy sort of up to the name of your account, the cloud name they call it. So that v1//. That's the beginning of the URL. Make sure there's no spaces. So what we're going to do is embed the cloud name. Now you don't have to do this. You could just put in whatever, the actual cloud name. But we set this up in an environment variable. So we can just pull it from there. So next public Cloudinary cloud name. And then we're posting specifically to a path called /upload. So to be able to post the data, we're going to first create some form data that will then use fetch to post up. So we're going to say form data is equal to new form data, which is like a native JavaScript object in the browser. To the form data, we can append our information. So we have a file, which is type of image. We have a signature, which is the value, of signature. We have our timestamp, and timestamp will be timestamp. You can't send numbers through forms, so you actually have to convert this to a string by calling toString. And then last, we have to send up our API key because it's going to validate, our Cloudinary key, so our publicly available key. It's going to basically compare that to the signature and make sure that it's a valid one that could be created. So API key, and that's process.env.next public Cloudinary key. Keep TypeScript happy by doing the question mark empty string so that it's for sure going to get a string. So with our form data set up, we could space this out a little bit better. We've got our URL, we've got our form data, we just have to post it. So we're going to use fetch for that. So const response is await fetch. We're going to send it to the URL we set up above, and we need to send some headers. So the first one is that we're posting this data. By default, fetch does get requests, and we need to give it the body of what we're posting. So that would be the form data. So from our response, we get our JSON, form data with a small f. And we're just going to return this from our function. So return response.json. And because it's asynchronous and we're returning a promise, it's all good. We'll basically just wait for it to resolve over here. So come down to where we called this. So at this point, we need to put what it gives us into a variable. So we're just going to say image data is equal to await the upload image. So that will give us something back. Now I didn't declare a type for this, so why don't we just take a look at what it's giving us back, and then we can go and declare a type for that. So we're just going to console.log this out, image data. Okay, so back to the browser, over to our app. Let's just refresh it so we can open up the console again. 10 whatever street, donkey, number of beds, send. Took a second, no? Because think about all it's doing. It had to call our mutation to get a signature and then upload the image to Cloudinary and get a response back from Cloudinary. But what Cloudinary gave us is a whole bunch of information. An asset ID, a format, JPEG, the height of the image, public ID, which is important, but what we're actually going to use is this secure URL. So why don't we actually just copy this and paste it in a browser? And there's our donkey image. So this is our donkey image being served from Cloudinary that we just uploaded. Public ID is important because we're going to use it later to show these images, but it's actually in the secure URL, so we can just like extract this out later. So all we really care about is this secure URL. So what we're going to do is just come up here and we're going to declare an interface, and we're going to call it, let's say, I upload image. Actually, let's call it upload image response. I've been putting I before all my interfaces just as a standard, so we'll put that there. So what is this going to give us back? It's going to give us a secure URL, which will be a string. Now it has a whole bunch of other stuff, but we don't care about it, so that's all we're going to declare. So we have to come here and we have to say it's going to return a promise, and when the promise resolves, it will be an I upload image response. So now we can come down here and we could say something like const image URL is equal to image data dot secure URL. So it has this available. For now, we're just going to leave this out, save it like this, and we've accomplished what we want to in this video. We now have to move on to creating a mutation to create a house. So that's going to be our next bet. But in order to do that, we needed this image data, that secure URL, and we've got that done, so we've accomplished our goal. So the files that were changed in this video, we added a new mutation that tweaked the schema. We modified the house form to call our mutation and to upload the image to Cloudinary. We created our image create signature mutation, and then we also added this image resolver to our schema. And then we have those generated files as well. So that's what we wanted to accomplish in this video. Thank you very much. See you on the next one.